Liberal Party is going to win now in the next election, most likely. And they were down and out. Isn't that going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal.
Welcome back to the show. My name's Mark Nixon. I have a huge show for you today. Alberta is completely done. They're sick and tired of being treated like a disregarded, used, disgusting piece of tissue, and they are finished. Are they going to separate from Canada? And was this Donald Trump's plan all along? We're going to get into it. Let's go. This just in, Donald Trump has broken his silence about the Canadian election. He says Canada picked the person that hated Donald Trump the least, and Pierre Poilievre was the #1 hater of Donald Trump.
Yeah, and yesterday he spoke about American betrayal. Are you interested in rebuilding relations with Canada, and if so, how?
No, well, I think we're going to have a great relationship. He called me up yesterday. He said, "Let's make a deal." You know, he was running for office. They both hated Trump, and it was the one that hated Trump, I think, the least that won. I actually think the conservative hated me much more than the so-called liberal. He's a pretty liberal guy. But no, I spoke to him yesterday. Couldn't have been nicer, and I congratulated him. You know, it was a very mixed signal because it's almost even, which makes it very complicated for the country. It's a pretty tight race, but he's a very nice gentleman, and he's going to come to the White House very shortly.
What the hell is going on? Because Mark Carney, his victory speech, he said, we are finished with the U.S. And Donald Trump now says they're best friends. He received a call and they're ready to make a deal.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen.
Can you believe it, Canada? We're seeing two different stories here. As James Alvarez says here, weren't Canadians trying to elect the guy who hated Donald Trump the most? The reason most liberals voted for Mark Carney is because Carney is the best guy to fight elbows up against Donald Trump. What the hell happened? It seems like they're buddies now. I have a question for you. What do you think Danielle Smith and Donald Trump talked about at Mar-a-Lago back in December? I'm sure Donald Trump asked, how's that Pierre Poilievre guy? And I guarantee you she said that he will build pipelines and make Canada an energy superpower and put Canada in a position of strength against Donald Trump. Or Canada could elect another liberal government, which would cause a Confederation crisis. That leads me to this.
Mr. Speaker, are they for real? Do they really think that Justin Trudeau was the one out there advocating on behalf of the energy industry in the United States? The guy who imposed the No More Pipelines bill, the tanker ban, an emissions cap on oil, an emissions cap on methane, net zero power regs, net zero vehicles, net zero building construction? Mr. Speaker, those are all policies advanced by the NDP. Right. It's the Liberal NDP coalition that is damaging this province, damaging our industry, and I'm the one standing up for it.
Yeah, that's Danielle Smith recently, and she has zero faith in the Liberal government able to build any kind of pipelines or energy for Alberta. And you are not going to believe what happened next. Yves François Blanchet from the Bloc Québécois Party came out yesterday and said, the dream of Canada becoming an energy superpower is officially over. That's right. He says that there will be zero, and I mean absolutely zero, oil and gas that goes through Quebec and for the rest of Canada for that matter.
and we will have to remain the barrier not to be crossed, protecting French language and secularity of the state in Quebec, and a different model in immigration which has to be successful, and the fact that there's no future for oil and gas, at least in Quebec and probably everywhere, and this has to be said and protected. I have a brand new weapon to do that. Mr. Bonin will be extraordinary carrying that message.
Wow, you got that right, Canada. Yves-François Blanchet wants zero oil and gas in Canada, and he's going to make sure of it. And here's Danielle Smith on the election win by Mark Carney.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that over 300 MPs got elected because they stood on a platform to get our resources developed, to work with provinces, to establish economic corridors, and to get our products to market. I think the NDP got crushed, the Greens got crushed, and the Bloc Québécois lost ground because they were opposed to that agenda. And so I would hope that the current Prime Minister understands that his mandate comes from moderate voters who actually want this province to be a genuine energy superpower and the country to be a genuine energy superpower. And so that's why I believe we saw the outcome that we got last night. It wasn't because they doubled down on extremist environmental policies that would crush our industry. It was the opposite. They depicted themselves as wanting to create a new approach, one that would be in sync with what all the provinces are asking for, and that's what I'll be asking the Prime Minister to do.
At the same time that all this drama is happening in Canada, yesterday Donald Trump addressed the nation, and look what he said.
We've ended the radical left war on American energy. We've stopped their crusade on coal. Did you see what I did the other day? Clean, beautiful coal. I said, you're not allowed to use the word coal unless you say clean, beautiful coal. So you have guys getting up, Department of Energy. We have great people at Department of Energy. They talk about clean, beautiful coal. You know, China uses coal. They're opening up a coal plant every week, a massive coal plant. But we're not allowed to use it, but now we are because last week I gave it absolute, total approval. And you know what I don't give approval to? Those stupid windmills that go round and round and round. And we've ended the Green New scam. We've reopened ANWR, the greatest drilling site anywhere in the world, in Alaska, and implemented the new energy policy of the United States. You know what it is? We have a policy. It's called Drill, Baby, Drill. That's our policy.
You got that, Canada? The U.S. is ready to drill, baby, drill, and coal all that coal. Oh, yeah. Is Canada going to join America and become an energy superpower under Mark Carney? We got more to talk about. The moment that the election results came in from Ottawa saying that the Liberals have won a minority government, immediately after, on the front page of the Financial Post, it read, Albertans say they're seriously thinking about separating after the Liberal win. Then Danielle Smith made this announcement the day after the election. So yesterday, it is incredible. She's making moves.
Democracy by making changes to the threshold needed for successful citizens' initiatives. The signature collection time for citizens' initiatives will be extended from 90 days to 120 days. We are also improving the process by setting the threshold to be 10% of the number of eligible voters who participated in the last general election, as opposed to being either 10 or 20% of total registered voters.
So what did we just hear here? Danielle Smith just slashed the number of signatures needed to trigger an Alberta independence referendum from 600,000 to 177,000. Plus, she extended the amount of time from 90 days to 120 days. Oh boy, Mark Carney woke up a sleeping giant. Alberta is officially done with Ottawa. This is what Danielle Smith said before the election, before we found out what the election results were going to be.
poll that says 3 in 10 Albertans want to leave Canada if Mark Carney's Liberals win this election. You've said that you won't lead a referendum, but where do you stand on this? Do you want Alberta to leave Canada?
Well, I want Canada to work. I want Canada to be able to meet its potential. I want for us to be able to build economic corridors. I want us to be able to develop all of our resources from oil and gas all the way through to critical minerals and beyond. But I also want Canada to work for Alberta, and it hasn't for the last 10 years because of terrible policies by the Liberals. And so I put forward a list of 9 items that I think would allow for us to have a reset in our relationship with the Federation, depending on who wins in 3 weeks' time. And that stands today. Those are some very basic things if we want to actually move to that reality of making Canada an economic powerhouse and supporting Alberta in particular. So I really hope that we can get Canada on Team Alberta, because Team Alberta has always been on Team Canada.
Yeah, so now we know that preemptively Danielle Smith had her instincts saying, I'm going to list out these 9 items, and if the Liberals actually do win, she knows where Alberta stands, and then she's going to put it on the citizens to decide what they want to do and where their future goes. But where does Donald Trump fit in all this? Think about that. Donald Trump wants Alberta's oil. Yeah. So, and when he talks about the 51st state, he probably doesn't want Quebec and Ontario and the rest of Canada. He probably wants Alberta. And he probably knew Mark Carney would be the right person in order to facilitate the exit of Alberta. Think about that. And as this article describes, Alberta sets the groundwork for referendum day after the Liberals' election victory. Danielle Smith has been working on this for some time now. This was from a month ago.
I'm calling it now the What's Next panel. We just want to go around the province, see how people are feeling, and see if there are any other referendum issues that they want us to put on the table.
An idea that might sound familiar.
Albertans have been working for Ottawa for too long. It's time for Ottawa to start working for us.
In 2019, then Premier Jason Kenney launched a 9-person fair deal panel to get Alberta a better deal within Canada. This political scientist says while the 2 panels might sound similar, they are not.
This seems to be a specific attempt to gin up anti-Ottawa, anti-Liberal attitudes in the aftermath of an election that isn't even over yet.
Smith's panel proposal comes within weeks of her threat of an unprecedented national unity crisis if the next PM doesn't meet her 9 demands within 6 months.
Stoking national unity crises that don't currently exist is certainly something new for the Premier of Alberta and should be worrisome not only for the next Prime Minister but for all Canadians.
I think she's articulating the so far unarticulated sentiments of most Albertans. Easterners just don't get it.
Albertan sentiments will be articulated in the upcoming election. Recent polling puts our province at odds with most of the country, showing Conservatives with 53% support on the prairies versus 36% across the rest of Canada, with Mark Carney leading across Canada as preferred PM with 47%. That support drops down to 29% in our region.
And we all know how this went. Let's take a look at a map to see how it all turned out with the election. By the way, this is a very important statistic. All of the Western provinces receive 0, and I mean absolutely 0 payments. Everything from all of these 3 provinces send billions upon billions of dollars to the east. Think about that. And here is what the election looks like. Check out the West. The West is basically completely blue. The only portion that is a little bit red is the lower mainland. But outside of that, we have a blue wave across the West. And if Alberta decides to leave, what's going to happen to BC? Check out how blue BC looks outside of the lower mainland. Is BC going to have a referendum as well? And here's the thing. I think that's why Danielle Smith and Donald Trump are talking, because if BC decides they don't want to Wexit, then Alberta has to join the US as the 51st state. BC does join Alberta, then they're not landlocked. They could actually get their product to the BC coast and to the rest of the world. So if in order for Alberta to become its own sovereign country, it would have to join forces with British Columbia. Now let's take a look at how realistic this entire thing is.
Can you tell our viewers, you're the King's Counsel lawyer, can you summarize in plain English how a place like Alberta could actually break away from Canada without firing a shot? Tell us the system.
And just let's contextualize that point first, which is this is rare. Most countries around the world, and I've been researching this to try and find countries that actually have in their constitutional framework a mechanism for a region, a province, or a state to lawfully vote to leave and let them go. Most places, that's treason. So what's remarkable, absolutely remarkable, and people can research this on their own to see that what I'm saying is true, is Canada's the only country, for example, in the Commonwealth that has constitutionalized the method for a province to leave. And it's the 1998 reference case of the Supreme Court of Canada that arose because of the referendum that was coming in Quebec. And the Supreme Court of Canada, our Supreme Court of Canada, ruled that if a clear majority of voters within a province vote in favor of independence, of succession, on a clear question, then each other province, federal government, and First Nations are all obligated to come to the table. They can't sit it out. They can't say, oh, sorry, I'm busy today. They can't say, you know, we're not playing. They have to come to the table. They have to enter into good faith negotiations as to the details, as to, you know, is Alberta going to keep the national parks and buy them from the federal government, or is the federal government going to keep the national parks, etc., and what relations will the First Nations have? So this is a highly unusual. We've got three things coming together that have never happened before. One, we have a legal process for a province to legally declare independence and become a sovereign or enter into a new relationship with someone else like the United States. We have 10 years of the Ottawa Liberals putting their knee, as I've said before, on Albertans' neck, and we're done with it. We don't need the rest of Canada. We'll be immediately better off financially by not sending so much tax money to central Canada and the other parts of the country. And thirdly, we have Donald Trump as the president who is in an acquisition mode.
And that's what I try to explain to everyone. Donald Trump's in acquisition mode. So either way, it's either BC comes out to play or Alberta becomes US's 51st state. But this is a bunch of moving parts. We actually don't know what's going to happen. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. What do you think's going to happen across Canada? Are we going to become more unified under Mark Carney? Or is this entire thing doomed and Alberta is out? I'm going to be making lots of content on this subject because I'm sure a lot of you are interested on what's going to happen in Canada now that Mark Carney is in charge. I'll see you on the next report.